the largest and most influential company in the world, and the first company to ever have a $1 trillion valuation and later a $2 trillion valuation. Even during this declining market, Apple has stayed dominant on top of the world stage. And it's crazy that this large behemoth started out of a little garage. And honestly, they probably started that tech stereotype. April 1st, 1976 in Los Altos, California, Apple Computers was founded by the legendary Steves, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and a guy named Ronald Wayne, who would sell his 10% ownership in the company for $800 shortly after, which let's just say would be worth this much today. Feels bad, man. Their goal was to revolutionize the personal computer industry, which was picking up a lot of steam in the 70s. But the main problem for some of the earlier versions of the personal computer like the Altair was that it didn't really appeal too much to the public and it wasn't really user-friendly. The only people that would buy these machines in the early 70s probably looked like this, but it would be one company's vision to bring personal computing into the households of everyone around the world that would change the industry and the future forever. But of course, like many tech startups, you should have at least one successful product in the market to prove yourself in the field. And for Apple Computers, it would all start with the Apple I. Somehow, through Jobs' crazy talent to sell anything, he was able to convince early buyers to buy the Apple I as just a motherboard. But would later in 1977 build in the rest of the accessories, finally making it a standalone computer device that someone could just buy and operate right away. Although if you guys think about it, buying individual parts of a computer so you can customize it yourself at home has become very common these days, you know, especially with these gaming rigs. So I feel like Steve Jobs was definitely on to something about that. Anyways, very soon later, Apple Computers would start to exponentially grow and see a lot of success for their company. Being led by the visionary Steve Jobs and the engineering genius of Steve Wozniak, just 4 years later in 1980, the company would make $100 million in net profit and have over 1,000 employees. In that same year, Jobs and his team would try to gather more funds for the company through the process of making the company public. So on December 12, 1980, they would do just that and would go public with 4.6 million shares at $22 per share, which according to my calculations would bring the IPO valuation to about $101 million. Not too shabby. This was only the start for Apple, as for the next couple of years they would push forward and continue to innovate and make new products. Apple had went through a lot of ups, but also a lot of downs. From the commercial failure of Lisa to $1 billion worth of unfulfilled orders in 1995, which let's just say isn't the best for any business operation. In the middle of all this innovation, somehow the two founders of Apple would find their way out of the company. Wozniak leaving Apple due to a declining interest in the company, while Jobs on the other hand, let's just say, got fired out of his own company. And you must be wondering, how the fuck did the creator, the progenitor of this company, got kicked out of his own operation? I wondered the same thing too, so I did a little digging into the ownership structure of the Apple company at the time, and I found a very useful chart that points out how the ownership within the company was divided up until the IPO launch, which would also allow the public to start owning parts of the company. According to this chart, it shows how much the power and influence Jobs lost in the company when it did go public, and allowed shareholders to take more of a dominant role in the decisions within the company. And that is usually the main trade-off when a company does go public. To all you Steve Jobs fans out there, don't fret, because as Apple started to see signs of bankruptcy, they would look towards one man and his newly established company to help lead them out of self-destruction. Apple in 1997 would acquire Next for $429 million and get Jobs to rejoin the company and soon after rise up to the role of CEO. Interim CEO. Not really much difference between them, to be honest, in my opinion. And for the rest of his time there, he would help lead the expansion and rise of Apple and their new lines of innovative products that would push the company further than ever into the new millennia.
Design Mac. Lift all of the technology out.
Apple stock has exploded since the return of Steve Jobs.
There's 1,000 songs. Keep this right in my pocket. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone.
When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
After his death in 2011, Tim Cook would take over as CEO of the company and would continue to lead Apple and carry on Steve's vision for the future till this day. For the next decade, as we all know, Apple would continue to innovate and build up its company. They control the largest market share for smartphones at about 28.43% of the entire smartphone market worldwide. And let's be honest, you're probably watching this on an Apple product right now, or at least an Apple product somewhere in your house. On average, an American household owns 2.6 Apple products. And I guess the 0.6 is most likely the iPhone that you smash into pieces after a Clash Royale game. Or I guess that's just me. Having such large control over the smartphone market also gives you control of a whole new digital market that was created by these devices. The App Store, which many companies across all sectors from gaming to social media rely on to put their mobile applications. And Apple, on the other hand, would be taking 15 to 30% of the transactions and subscriptions from these apps. This basically gives Apple a strong source of passive revenue, as they'll just allow people to build applications for their products without lifting a finger and reap all the rewards. Unless you're Epic and try to funnel the mobile transaction somewhere else to avoid the transaction fee, which isn't the best idea, as Apple would just delete them off their phones. This gives them a lot more power and influence over many companies and businesses out there, and for sure help contribute to them being the largest company in the world. All of this just goes to show how dominant they are in this market and this new generation. In my opinion, the most important reason for their success is really due to how people perceive their brand. Branding of a company is really important, and Apple has their branding down to the T in various aspects, from the quality of their products to their why. For years, Apple had consistently delivered quality products to the public, which has allowed them to build further trust with the consumer. On top of this, their advertising game is truly top tier, with every new Apple product launch being seen as a whole fucking event. They advertise their products in a way that gives off a sense of high-end luxury and quality, and the memes aren't bad either. Also, probably the most important part of their brand is their why and values that connect to the consumer on a deeper level. Their why statement, to think differently and to challenge the status quo, is a simple but inspiring motto. And through the inspiring story and achievements of one man, Steve Jobs, which has been etched in media thanks to Hollywood movies, it creates a loyal base of consumers that continue to support the company and buy its products year after year. Who knows, man? Apple could continue to remain at the top of their industry for years to come, or there will be a company that will be able to surpass Apple in the future. The future is crazy like that, as no one is 100% sure what's going to happen. All I know is for now, I'll still be rocking Windows computers.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.